Now, let's go to Isaiah the 28th chapter, because we're going to show you that the Lord knew that you was going to have to be taught his word in a different language, okay? And like I say, we're going to be dealing with the Old Testament. We're going to be dealing with the New Testament. So it don't matter whether you are Old Testament Hebrew or a New Testament Christian. You have to understand where the name comes from and why, what language you're supposed to speak it in, and how the Lord set this thing up that you can't run from it. Mm-hmm. You can't run from it, okay? Isaiah 28, and we're going to pick it up at verse 9. Isaiah 28 and verse 9. Go ahead.
Whom shall he teach knowledge? And whom shall he make to understand doctrine?
So now, he asked you a question. Whom shall we teach knowledge and make you understand doctrine? And we're going to find out how you're going to get it. Okay, go ahead.
Them that are weaned from the milk and drawn from the breast.
Go ahead.
For precept must be upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line. Here a little and there a little.
And that's the way we teach here. We go here a little, there a little, line upon line. Okay, go ahead.
For with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people.
Wait a minute now. He said with stammering lips and another tongue will he speak to this people. So it don't matter if you speak Greek. It don't matter if you speak Latin. It don't matter if you speak Japanese. The Lord is going to speak to you, especially Israel. Mm-hmm. And everybody else is going to have a shot too, because we're going to find out in the latter days, the Lord said he's going to gather many nations by many tongues, and they're going to come and see his glory. So it don't matter what language you speak, but how you going to get doctrine, the Lord said he's going to give it to you with a stammering lip and another tongue. You're going to hear his word, and you ain't going to be able to get around it. Is that word, is that language Hebrew? I don't know. Unless you living in Hebron, or you living in a land that speak pure Hebrew, then yeah, he going to convict you on that Hebrew. But if you're in the land of America and the language in America is English, he expects you to understand in the language of that land. Plain and simple. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 12. To whom he said, this is the rest wherewith ye may cause the weary to rest. And this is the refreshing, yet they would not hear.
So now you can come to them in their own language. The language of the land that they was born in, and guess what? They still not going to hear. Speak to them plainly in a language that they can understand, they still going to turn from it and say that don't mean what that say. You have to understand the root of the word. Believe me, we understand the roots of the word. That's why we do what we do. But we understand how the Bible set it up, and the Lord had it set up so he know that at a set time, a different language is going to be spoken, and he going to make sure it's translated for us what specifically that word that he wants us to understand. Mm-hmm. Plain and simple. Okay, go ahead.
Verse 13. But the word of the Lord was unto them precept upon precept, precept upon precept, line upon line, line upon line, here a little and there a little, that they might go and fall backward and be broken and snared and taken.
So now because you don't want to hear, you're going to be broken, you're going to fall backward, and you're going to be coming to a snare. You're going to fall into a trap. Why? Because you don't want to hear even in the language that you've been taught. You want to go out and make up, words from a new language just like these Hebrew, these Edomites did. I might as well call them out by their name. Mm-hmm. The ones that kept changing the language and adding things to the language. Believe me, all you got to do is just be in the land that you live in, stick with that language, and you will get the doctrine. You will find out how to get salvation, and don't turn from it. Otherwise, you'll be snared and broken and fall into a trap. What's that trap? Lake of fire. Because you didn't want to listen to the language that was being taught to you by somebody who made sure you would get an understanding of what the Lord wants from you according to the scriptures. Okay? Now, let's go to John 19. I want to show you an example how the Lord made sure that even though the Bible was going, the word of the land, the language of the land where you lived at was going to be another tongue, he made sure that it was being, the proper words would be transferred so you would understand what's going on. Okay? So now, we're going to John 19, and we're going to pick it up at verse 5. John 19 and verse 5. Go ahead.
Then came Jesus forth, wearing a crown of thorns and a purple robe. And Pilate saith unto them, Behold the man.
So now, this is when Jesus was about to be crucified. Okay? And he went into Pilate, and they had a little conversation. Then he came back out, and then Pilate showed Jesus to these Hebrews. And believe me, they started speaking and having a communication here, and we're going to find out that both of them understood each other. Okay, go ahead.
When the chief priests, therefore, and officers saw him, they cried out, saying, Crucify him, crucify him. Pilate saith unto them, Take ye him and crucify him, for I find no fault in him.
So now he told them, look, you crucify him because I don't find no fault in him. Okay, go ahead.
The Jews answered him, We have a law, and by our law he ought to die, because he made himself the Son of God.
Go ahead.
When Pilate therefore heard that saying, he was the more afraid.
So now he was more afraid because he knew it was going to fall on him to take care of this matter. Okay, skip down to verse 17. Go ahead.
And he, bearing his cross, went forth into a place called the Palace of a Skull, which is called in the Hebrew Golgotha.
So now, if we were speaking full Hebrew here, why would it have to be translated for us in what the Hebrew tongue would call it, Golgotha? Why? Because we know this was a different language they were speaking at this time, and it had to be translated so we would understand what the place was called, which was called in the Hebrew Golgotha. Okay, go ahead.
Where they crucified him, and two others with him on either side, one, and Jesus in the midst.
Go ahead.
And Pilate wrote a title and put it on the cross.
So now, and we run across this every day on how they finna set this thing up. Because even when you go to the cash station machines now, they ask you, which language do you want to do your transaction in? Same thing Pilate did when it came to him acknowledging who Jesus was. Okay, go ahead.
And the writing was, Jesus of Nazareth, the King of the Jews. This title then read many of the Jews, for the place where Jesus was crucified was nigh to the city. And it was written in Hebrew and Greek and Latin.
So he made sure that everybody knew in their language, Hebrew, Greek, and Latin, who this man was that was being crucified. And they, like I say, well, however it was translated, he didn't mean it in no defaming way. He meant it to point out to the people that y'all just killed this King of the Jews. Plain and simple. So now if you're going to kill the King of the Jews, he going to point out, Pilate was doing, he was doing an acknowledgement here by letting them know this man was the king of y'all, and y'all killed him anyway. I don't care who Caesar is. Plain and simple. Okay. Now let's go to Psalms. Let's go to Revelation, the 9th chapter. Revelation 9. Now I'm just showing you here how what they do is the Lord made sure that if we need to understand a certain term, that it was going to be translated for us so we would understand it in our own tongue, no matter where we are. Plain and simple. Okay. Revelation 9. And we're going to pick it up at verse 11. Revelation 9 and verse 11. Go ahead.
And they had a king over them, which is the angel of the bottomless pit.
So now this king over them, that's the angel of the bottomless pit, this is the one that we know as Satan. Okay, go ahead.
Whose name in the Hebrew tongue is Abaddon.
So now it had to be translated here, right?
That's right.
And it says name was in the Hebrew tongue Abaddon. Okay, go ahead.
But in the Greek tongue, his name hath his name Apollyon.
So now we talking about two different translations here. We talking about Hebrew and Greek. So the Lord made sure that his translation was going to be taken care of so we would understand who this king of this bottomless pit is. So we know him as Satan the devil. Okay.